got several different stories from several different media outlets. It's time for another episode of the World's Newsround. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with another episode of the World's Newsround, where I cover various stories from several different media outlets. And I'm going to be focusing quite a bit on Europe in this episode today. And I'm going to be starting with Ukraine. And this headline from CNN that Ukraine's defeat in Avdiivka darkens the mood in the West. So obviously, before I give my reading to the article, I think it's important. We're going to look at the deep state map in a bit as well, which will show us how it came to be the situation as well. But this was unfortunately inevitable. Avdiivka was already under immense pressure. Ukraine had done well to held it for as long as they did. It's a massive loss for Ukraine, and it's a great victory for Russia. However you want to put it, it's a good day for them and for them, which is not good in terms of for what's been happening lately. And we're going to be looking at even more, because there's going to be Russia applying even more pressure at the moment as well. Ukraine are really struggling right now. They're really struggling. While they are getting lots of support and military equipment and non-military equipment, training and whatnot from Europe and non-essential military equipment from some certain neutral countries as well. One of the biggest stumbling blocks that's really hurting Ukraine right now is what's happening in America with regards to the aid package to support them, and this is playing right into Putin's hands. What's happening there, and as the time and that's really hampered the slowdown and any progress of being able to hold their lines, not having enough equipment, not having enough military equipment, not having enough ammunition. All these kind of things are playing a part in it. And we also have to remember is that Ukraine doesn't have an unlimited amount of soldiers. They are struggling with soldier count. I don't think there's any question that there is, but they're probably not publicly saying that. And in this situation here, if they had the soldiers, they would have no doubt been able to hold the city, I think, and keep the supply line that was important open to it. But given the circumstances, I think they made the right choice to pull the soldiers out. It wasn't worth them losing their lives for the city, unfortunately. Unfortunately, those living within it are now going to succumb to Russian occupation now, and which is really, really a shame. But a few years ago, obviously, a year or so ago, Ukraine did make some counter-offensive, and they haven't been able to push it now. And now it seems to be, this year, it seems to be more of the Russian offensive is really pushing through. And it's not good. It's really not good for them and for Ukraine right now. And they need support more than ever right now, because it's only going one direction, and it's going towards Russia. So it is a pivotal moment where both Russia's advances and Western atrophy threaten to transform the biggest land war in Europe since the 1940s. Travelling from the Munich Security Conference towards Ukraine's front lines, the polite frustration and manicured pleas of Western leaders, and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky feels yet more desperate. The warnings that Ukraine might suffer setbacks on the front line if the United States Congress continues to hold up a £60 billion aid package that have now curtailed into a bitter, brutal reality. The pledges and rhetoric of Munich suits and limousines have so far amounted to little in the wait or abyss ahead. Ukraine is losing people and land, and it's all very real, immediate and stark. After months of stalemate, the possibility of sweeping changes to the front line is quite real. The horrific death of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny meant the brutality of the Putin regime was amplified and crystal clear for European leaders who had feared that the gathering would have been dodged by doubts over the future Trump presidency, adherence to the NATO alliance. Latvia president spoke of murder. Germany's defense minister of how the death showed Russia was willing and able to provoke the West. Ukraine reasoned it was proof that Putin was too irrational of a man to negotiate with. And yet the conference, often a talking stop, fixated on entourage and coloured passes over the concrete results, ended without major progress. US President Joe Biden said that in 2021 that Navalny's death would lead to devastating consequences for Russia. Yet the White House's toolkit has been somewhat emptied by the 2022 invasion as of Monday morning, 72 hours after Navalny's passing was announced. No measures have been announced. Indeed, Vice President Kamala Harris could only berate the political guardianship of a Republican-led Congress that has just taken 2 weeks off. Meanwhile, Zelensky taking the stage in Munich right after Ukraine announced its withdrawal from significant eastern front town of Avdiivka on Saturday, found the climate of defeat in Ukraine and the savagery in Russia almost did nothing to bring the urgency for the US billions closer. And that's the problem. Their hands are strong. Their hamstrung are tied here. The Democrats, they need to do something, because that aid package, they're relying so heavily on America right now, Ukraine. And as time comes on, it's getting easier and easier for them. It's not good whatsoever for Ukraine. In and of itself, the Ukrainian defeat at Avdiivka does not hurt a sea change in Kiev's fortunes, and is only a moderate strategic importance, but Ukraine has held it for a decade. Since Russia's first invasion in 2024 pushed in the Donbass region, Ukraine announced a voluntary withdrawal after months of immense Russian pressure. A choice perhaps fomented by some political realities. The defense of Bakhmut, another town on the eastern front that Moscow was willing to squander thousands of lives to take last year, did. Critics of Ukrainian policy argue it costs Kiev resources it would have been better to devote to its counter-offensive in the south last summer. We will look at the deep state map on it, guys, don't worry. The counter-offensive failed, and the reshuffle of Ukraine's top brass, which the architect of a failed summer push, the General Voroty Zuki, was replaced by his top deputy, Alexei, comes at both the worst and the best time. Depending on who you are talking to, the animosity between Zelensky and his military chiefs has become a distraction into the war effort, and new ideas were clearly needed. And yet Sarsky must replace the near-iconic commander who is deeply popular with troops and civilians at a time when Ukraine is hobbled in all directions. He does not have a moment to take stock or reassess. Some analysis has seen Sarsky openly act of withdrawing from Avdiivka as a bid to show that he is more protective and custodian of troops' lives than his hard-man reputation would suggest. And I think, you need, I like the soldiers, obviously. Now, obviously, the changing of the commander was a big thing in Ukraine, and it's and especially during the war as well. It's very deepening, concerning to say the least. And I wouldn't say that, okay, the counter-offensive didn't go as well as they wanted, but they still gained ground. They still did gain ground, but I don't know if I still, we'll see. Time will tell whether this new commander will do what the new commander will be able to do what's necessary. But if he's going to if he can prolong the lives of the Ukrainian soldiers, that's a good thing. But how much land are you willing to give away as well? Because you can. That's the other question as well. Kiev is now dealing with Russian surges on many fronts after Avdiivka. They may attempt to sweep up other surrounding villages, yet the fall of this railway hub frees up the Kremlin units and air power to fight elsewhere. This could be Volodymyr to the south, to the west, and one of the main and intimate gains of the southern counter-offensive. Robert Tune, where hundreds died on the pitched battles for a tiny village, is under threat. Russian bloggers have suggested a full assault on the eastern flank. Ukrainian officials insisted they have been repelled. There is pressure near Kolsplitz on the edges of Kharkov, and there could be another Russian surge around Bakhmut. The extent of Russia's capabilities and intent is unclear at the moment, while it's important to remember that the mess and the collapse there were a year ago under the same president, defense minister, but they are badly in need of demonstrating a win ahead of Putin's rubber-stamped re-election as president just under a month from now. Their military-industrial complex appears to be humming in producing war material, and the Kremlin coffers have never been fuller. This is the thing as well. They're racking up money now, Russia. You think they were supposed to be hamstrung when this invasion all started, and when the invasion started and the sanctions imposed, but now they're doing well financially, Russia. It would be a mistake to think Putin, with his state applicants and economics now fully retooled with indefinite conflict, has curbed his ambitions. He even spoke about Poland, a NATO member, as an irritant vassal in his recent interview with Tucker Carlson. How far he's willing to go remains unclear, but the fact that the answer to the question is unknown and could be cause for concern. The key assets of Russian forces is now Persistence, dodge, and callous. Moscow has something Kiev lacks, and that is a constant stream of recruits, conscripts, mercenaries, prisoners for the front line, which is willing to waste for minor objectives, with unimaginable frontal assaults that can replenish at a staggering rate. Conversely, Ukraine lacks manpower and is stalling on a decision to widen the draft to include 25 to 26-year-olds. You've got to force the hand. You've got to get more bodies up, Ukraine. Yes, you got to do it. You got to do it. Zelensky wanted another 500,000 men, and that has yet to happen. Yeah, got to get the men. Ammunition is lacking, and so on imperial front lines, Ukraine must rationalise shells, while Moscow forces can rely on top-ups from as far away as North Korea to keep their artillery stocked. Western aid replenished by the European Union last month is still meagre because of Republican dysfunction in Congress. The House has gone on a 2-week break. That fortnight might see changes on the front lines that Ukraine would not have dreamed of just 6 months ago. Yeah. The Republican Party is causing this as well, with their delay in things as well. So this is a view of the city destroyed, buildings in Avdiivka on the 15th of February. There you can see, which is now obviously in Russia's hands. So the city is taking quite a battering, as you can see. The impact of Congress' indecision is already calamitous. The belief, perhaps held by some uninformed Republicans, that if Ukraine is ignored enough, Putin will somehow stop and just go away, has already been exposed as delusional, and in the last weeks alone. The Kremlin will not stop. Ukraine will continue to weaken without Western aid and its billions. The war will not go away, and the decisions the West will face in the coming months are not over. They are willing to continue with their parallel aid when they are currently perverting over. Instead, they may face larger existential questions about whether providing a lot more help very urgently to stop Ukraine's war becoming Europe's. I am deeply concerned about what's happening, and it's only going to get worse. The conflict is one that we should all be concerned about. I know, obviously, it's the only reason it's getting more highlight recently is because of the town fall in here. But there has been for a long period, as I've covered on my channel with shorts over the last several months, is that there's been a lot of stalemate. There's been skirmishes here and there, but nothing really too much moving. And now Russia seem to be really making the push, and we will see that obviously in the deep state map. So this next one, guys, I'm going to show you, sticking with the war in Ukraine, is from the Kiev Post. So Russia launches a ground assault in a new sector, recovers ground lost to Ukraine's summer offensive. So a lot of the ground that Ukraine had gained last year, when it comes to those counter-offensive, a lot of that ground has gone back into Russia's hands now. So Kremlin paratroopers and tanks over the weekend grabbed parts of the minimal gains managed by the Ukrainian army during its unsuccessful 2023 summer offensive. So yeah, they could end up pushing much further in as a result as well. So Russian tanks and infantry launched new rounds of assaults on the formerly quiet southern Zaporizhzhia sector, overwhelmingly forward Ukrainian positions, and recovered some grounds lost to Kiev offensive last summer. The Kremlin armoured attacks backed by artillery and airstrikes hit the frontline villages Robotyne and Revbov, both located were liberated in June 2023 and held by Ukrainian forces since then. Official reports and open source accounts as said on Monday. The new Russian grounds gained on the southern front came in the wake of months of bloody assaults, finally catching the massive Ukrainian fortification complex around the Donetsk region city of Avdiivka in the eastern sector of the Russian-Ukrainian war 1,600-kilometer fighting line. Kremlin forces attacked the western and southern outskirts of Robotyne, overwhelming frontline Ukraine positions, advanced Russian lines and kilometer, and captured a chain of field fortifications and prisoners, pro-Russian Zubar and other Kremlin-associated military informant platforms had said. Parallel assault columns attacked from the south and the west to hit Ukrainian positions around the village of Vodbol, some 8 kilometers to the west, capturing fighting positions and repelling subsequent counterattacks by Kiev forces, those accounts had said. Unconfirmed reports said Kremlin forces had advanced between 700 to 1,500 meters on the front of about 1,000 meters wide. A shift by Russian forces in the Zaporizhzhia sector from defensive tactics to attacks on Ukraine's forward positions were first widely reported on Saturday. A Monday statement by the Armed Forces of Ukraine General Staff, the AFU AGS, said that over Sunday's Russian troops had launched 10 ground attacks in the Robotyne-Velpo sector, according to the official Kiev source, all unsuccessful.
The pro-Russia Zard VDV Telegram channel and information platform promoting Russian army paratrooper units said that the Ukrainian troops at Robotyne were half-circled by the attacks. And you can see there, obviously, we'll look at a deep state map there in terms of the map diced away. Moscow's mini bloggers said task groups from Russia's 42nd Motored Rifle Division and 76th Airborne Division, followed up by fire strikes with tanks and armoured vehicle attacks against fighting positions held mostly by Ukraine's 82 of Air Assault Brigade and 111th Mechanized Infantry Brigade. Ukrainian sources confirmed heavy fighting had taken place, but was silent about substantial Russian grounds gained. Past AFU statements have geolocated on both the 82nd and 111th to the Zaporizhzhia sector. According to the Kremlin's official news agency TASS, the Russian assault over the weekend took place at night, where the support of massive artillery, image and purpose from the scenes reported showed Russian howitzers, rocket artillery and heavy flamethrowers and armoured vehicles launching munitions towards Ukrainian positions against minimal Kiev counterfires. Multiple Russian airstrikes were reported as well. Some pro-Russian information platforms published videos of APV and quadruped drones purposefully attacking drone trucks, Ukrainian trucks or troops in the Zaporizhzhia sector. So they're really trying to push there at the moment from the looks of it. An increasing severely deficit of artillery shells, particularly in the NATO Western 155 caliber, which Ukraine can only obtain in mass from its Western allies, have been widely reported in the Ukraine media since autumn 2023. Most often, Ukraine news reports blame slow European nations gear up to the massive 155 shells production and US congressional wrangling over continued military aid for a now more serious and worse than AFU shortage of munitions in a critical 155 caliber. A TikTok video published originally by the user Kishavishko showed images claimed to be a video of a Ukrainian private soldier named Valery Okta. According to the unconfirmed account, he was captured on February the 8th near Robotyne after his position was pounded by artillery and then assaulted. After firing off 3 magazines of rifle cartridges and a single hand grenade issued to him, he had no more ammunition and no choice but to surrender. The video showed Oleg saying, "Yeah, I'm not going to have a look at the video for obvious reasons." Shortages of air defense weapons and particularly NATO standard modern anti-aircraft missiles have likewise laid the AFU with very few effective means of stopping Russian Air Force bombers from dropping glider bombs at long range at will, without serious risk of being attacked. The pro-Ukraine military information platform Deep State in a Monday, which we'll look at in a second, Monday's situation so the updated Zaporizhzhia sector, the vulgar Ukrainian word for Russian, have started a massive attack from Robov to Velebon from the south and west of Velebon. They were able to break defensive lines right now, and the AFU is taking steps to litigate the problem. The intensity of the attack fell substantially on Sunday. Some were able to break into Robotyne, but most of them were liquidated. The widely read Ukrainian mini blogger Volodymyr Vanskis told his 2 million plus followers that this Russian attack around Robotyne is a combat reconnaissance with up to 300,000 vulgar Russian word for Russians and an unknown amount of equipment. I can't say that after the last changes in key commander positions there is finally a contempt reaction to this kind of assault. Fire control is where it needs to be. Ukrainian direct fire artillery strikes and drone attacks tune back the latest Russian assault for further advances is unlikely, he claimed. A group of vulgar infantry and 2 armoured personnel characters tried to drive into the depth of the defence. They were let through and then they were all defeated, sorted by Russian forces into the direction of Mali Suskits, a village in the Zaporizhzhia sector. Also did not bring any results except for lost equipment, an unconfirmed battle report said. In early June 2023, Ukraine's High Command launched a long-awaited counter-offensive led by hundreds of NATO nation-donated fighting vehicles in the Zaporizhzhia sector, with the main effort directed down roads leading through Robotyne and First World towards their regional transports and logistic hub of Tommak. Despite high hopes of Ukrainian allies for a quick success, the Ukrainian tank and armoured vehicles attack bogged down after hitting dense Russian minefields. They were badly hit by Russian helicopters and special forces infantry firing anti-tank missiles. The no-man's land established by the Ukrainian summer offensive, whose southernmost limit of advance was around Robotyne and Verbon, had not shifted significantly in more than 6 months. If confirmed, the Russian capture of Ukrainian positions around Robotyne and Verbon would signal Kremlin re-establishment of its original fortification lines in the sector, and Kiev's loss of its deepening penetration into the Russian defensive network in the area.
President Vladimir Zelensky on the February the 8th sacked the popular AFU commander Vladimir Sursky, according to the Ukrainian chief executive statement, as part of a wide-reaching overhaul and refreshment of the top military leadership, and possibly for the poor result of the summer offensive. Zuskar's replacement, Oligar Sursky, said that the AFU will follow a more defensive attrition strategy, concentrating on causing the Russian army as many casualties in men and equipment as possible. And I think this is probably the best course of action with regards to their situation, which we've spoken about before, especially when things have not been going their way. Right, so I'm going to show you guys here. So this is the deep state map. For those who don't know, the link for it will be in the description if you guys want to have a look at it yourself. So this is the latest update. I'm just going to go back. Is there a way I can... I forgot, not sure how to... I'm just trying to remember. Is there a way we can go back? Okay. We're going to... Right, so it only goes far back as the 15th. Okay, so let me just see. Where is the city of Avdiivka? Okay, so obviously this was the 15th here. I just wanted to show you guys. So these are the positions. So obviously at the time, this is like five days ago now. So this is where it was a couple of days ago. Russia really pushing for Avdiivka. You're not seeing. Then there's obviously pushing out from Bakhmut as well there. Bit of trying to push here as well. There's push movements up here. Not too much here, but a lot of here, the green stuff. Yeah, a lot of this was counter-offensive push that was done last summer, as well. Some down here as well. Not too much movement happening down here, but we can see a little bit of pushing here, a little bit of pushing, but not too much. But I just want to focus on Avdiivka here, because as time continued to pass here, so this was the next. Hold on, let me just get. So if it should update. So this was the next. Can you take me to the next day? So next day again, and then next day again. As you can see, slowly the cut-off point was coming. And then obviously the 17th, that's when they kind of pushed out. So you could see, yeah, just the day before the 16th, you could see the surround was very clear, and it was becoming inevitable. And then obviously on the 17th they pulled out of there, and then obviously after that they made the conscious decision to move out. But as you can see there, it's kind of slowed obviously since. They've kind of obviously they've taken it and they've stopped and they've held their position. Have they made gains here? Just seeing, doesn't appear to be any gains here from the looks of that there. But they did say they did start a new offensive in. Just seeing, so there was some. Just seeing if there was some movement here. There was a little bit of movement around Bakhmut. And obviously this is just obviously as the days and changes. So it looks like they're gearing up more forces here. So they look like they're going to be pushing here from Kremenica from the looks of it as well, and obviously trying to make advances here in Bakhmut as well. So yeah, so Avdiivka has fallen. So obviously this is the situation that it is in at the moment. But I think the counter-offensive was last year. Perhaps in hindsight was not the right choice, was not the right decision to make. But we don't know. Time will tell. If he's more of a, I generally, as much as I want it to be the other way around and Ukraine to gain ground, the lack of equipment, the lack of soldiers, these need to be sorted and addressed, and they need to hold the positions, and Ukraine needs to hold the positions that it needs to hold right now. So especially as when we have a situation when they need more equipment and more stuff from Europe to keep the war going, and also when we were looking at the recruitment drive, when they were saying they haven't got 24 to 25-year-olds, I don't think this should be a debate. I think it should just get them in. Get the soldiers in. You need to have soldiers in. I understand some people don't want to fight, but the very sake of the country is at stake here. Get them in, get them trained, get them on the front line at this point, because you can't take this risk, because Russia have made quite some gains, and they're going to be looking to make gains again. And I also think that there's not going to be any kind of counteroffensive coming anytime soon for Ukraine. I think this year they just need to be just solidifying their positions for the time being, especially, and just build up their equipment, build up the soldier count, and just keep them at bay. Russia, don't try not to allow too many advances. They did well as long as they did to hold the town of Avdiivka, but it was inevitably going to fall. It's a sad state of affairs that it's happened, but they did what they had to do there in the end, guys. Right, so before we completely move on from the Ukraine Russia situation, guys, I just want to take you to this story from Sky News. Wonders why it took him so long to even mention anything about what happened to Alexei Navalny, but he finally did. So the headline here is: Donald Trump finally breaks silence on Alexei Navalny's death, but makes no mention of Vladimir Putin. Several world leaders, including US President Joe Biden, have directly blamed the Russian government for the death of the prominent Kremlin critic. Now, I don't understand what took him so long to say anything. I think you guys can have a guess for why. So Donald Trump has broken his silence on the death of the Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny, but avoided casting blame on President Vladimir Putin. Mr. Trump, who drew criticism for praising the Russian ruler during his presidency, spoke out in a post on the social media platform Truth Social. The former US president wrote on Monday, "The sudden death of Alexei Navalny has made me more and more aware of what is happening in our country." Now, correct me if I'm wrong, how is the death of Alexei Navalny made you more aware of what's happening in America? I don't get that. It is a slow, steady progression with crooked, radical left politicians, prosecutors, and judges leading us down the path of destruction. Open borders, rig elections, grossly unfair classroom dissensions are destroying America. We are a nation in decline, a failing nation. MAGA 2024. How is any of this anything? How is any of this related to? How is this anything related to it? I know. However, his statement was criticised political rivals, including fellow Republican President hopeful Nikki Haley. She wrote on X, Donald Trump could have condemned Vladimir Putin for being a murderous thug. Trump could have praised Navalny's courage. Instead, he stole a page from liberals' playbook, denouncing America and comparing our country to Russia. It comes after Mr. Navalny died on Friday while serving a 19-year prison sentence on charges that his supporters said were politically motivated. Several world leaders, including US President, have pointed the finger directly at blaming Mr. Putin, while Mr. Navalny's wife said she believed that he was poisoned on the Russian president's orders. I do believe that he will become a martyr, and there have been, I have seen obviously online as well, there have been lots of wreaths and flowers laid down in certain cities in Russia of his death, and they've been taken away by Russian authorities. And yeah, people are very, very, some people have been taken away because of their feeling about him. It's not going to start an uprising, I don't think, but there's definitely a lot of anger within Russia, but there's too much authoritarianism right now for them to kind of do anything. Russia's government has rejected allegations it was involved in its death, with the Kremlin criticising the reaction in the West as unacceptable and absolutely rabid. Well, we know how the Kremlin feels about Alexei. History speaks for itself, doesn't it? Speaking to the White House on Friday, Mr. Biden said Russian authorities are going to tell their own story. Make no mistake, Putin was responsible for Navalny's death. We don't know exactly what happened, but there is no doubt that the death of Navalny was a consequence of something that Putin and his thugs did. The Canadian leader Justin Trudeau also said his death was a reminder of exactly what a monster Putin is. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Labour opposition leader Keir Starmer did not mention the Russian president when they issued their initial reaction to Mr. Navalny's death last week. In similar statements posted on media, the pair both described what happened as terrible news and praised Mr. Navalny's courage and sent their sympathies to his family. Britain's Foreign Secretary Lord Cameron also said on Friday Putin should be held to account for what's happened. No one should doubt the dreadful nature of his regime. Absolutely. But just on, this man here, not just being such a suck up for Trump is just pretty vile to say the least. Come on, right? Could just had to turn it into something about him in America in his tweet. It was just really had to go there. Just sad little man, guys. So guys, we're about the halfway point here in the World's Newsround, so we're going to break things up with a little bit of a funny video. I hope you guys enjoy this. It's from Foil and Arms. The link will be in the description if you guys want to check it out yourself. But do check out their channel. They do some really funny stuff. And the headline for this video is "Learning French is easy."
You alright?
Yeah, I booked a holiday to France, and I think I've made a big mistake.
What do you mean?
Well, apparently, all French people hate speaking English, and I'm just going to cancel it.
Well, no, don't cancel it.
Huh?
Just learn French. French is easy.
What?
So many French words, they're the same in English.
Are they?
Ballet, cliché, fiancé, dossier, risque, soufflé.
I guess that's words that end in A.
Voyage, garage, courage, homage, hostage, marriage.
Right, yeah, well, obviously, words
Pollution, partition, emotion, dilution, completion.
Right, yeah, well...
Table, cable, fable, adorable, horrible.
Yeah, okay, but there's got to be more to it than just that.
Not really.
Huh?
You just add a French accent on top.
Yeah, well, I can't do a French accent.
Can you gargle water?
Yeah.
Well, then you can do a French accent. And also what you could do is, very simply, just take an English word and change it to its fancier version. Then you're speaking French as well.
Fancier version?
Yeah, so first, premiere. Expert, connoisseur. Type, genre.
Right.
Cake, gâteau. Corner shop.
Boutique.
Arse.
Derriere.
Brilliant, yeah.
Yeah, just speak like a snob.
Exactement. French is just such a versatile language. So, how would you say, I don't know, I'm not sure, I'm not bothered, I don't care?
I don't know.
But it's all the same word.
What? That's great.
I know,
That's
isn't
really
it?
good, yeah.
Yeah.
That's handy.
You'll hear that a lot in France. There is just a couple of things you have to watch out for. A bras is actually an arm.
Oh.
Yeah, that got me in trouble.
Right.
And an affair is simply just a business matter, and there's no need to inform your neighbour's wife.
Yeah.
Also, never ask to be covered in a blanket.
Okay.
Because it's actually a stew.
Right.
And it can be very hot.
Right.
Oh, did you know also, the French city of Nice?
Yes. Lovely
It's
place.
actually
yeah.
pronounced nice.
What?
Yeah,
You're
I know.
joking
The
me.
French people have been pranking the
Nice.
world for years.
It's nice.
Also, you're aware, obviously, that there's quite a long and complicated history between the French and the English.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's important when you're over there to remember always, to wear this.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than
So-
that, I think you're set.
I think I can get a real feel for the language now and a grasp of the nuances of the French culture. Get an authentic experience.
Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, where are you going?
Disneyland.
Oh, just felt like a waste of time if he's just doing all that and then he's just saying, "Where are you going, Disneyland?" Oh, okay then. What's that, Ollie? Oh, Ollie's pretty happy about it as well. You guys, do you want to see Ollie more? He's on the live stream, so if you ever come along the live streams, you can say hello to Ollie. He happens to be around about ways. So this next one, we're going to be going back to Europe in a bit anyway. But before we do, guys, I want to have a look at this one here from Al Jazeera. So the headline here is Qatar criticises Israel's Netanyahu over Hamas comments. Qatar's foreign ministry officials accuse the Prime Minister of seeking to prolong Israel's war on Gaza. So recently, if I think I've done it in a short video, where the Brazilian president, if not, or maybe I did it on Rumble, and basically the Brazilian president had criticised Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel and basically said what they're doing is actually genocide. They're committing genocide, which has obviously stirred up a hornet's nest there. And obviously Qatar now criticising Israel. Netanyahu is continuing to cause a stir as always. So I'm glad that Qatar have come out and said this. The pressure is immensely mounting on Israel and Netanyahu. They need to do something. They need to stop this. Whether they will or not, that'll be another matter. But let's see what Qatar actually had to say here, guys. So Qatar has criticised comments from Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in which he said the Gulf states should do more to secure the release of hostages held by Hamas in Gaza, and claimed that the Palestinian group is financially dependent on Doha. In a speech before American Jewish leaders on Sunday, Netanyahu said pressure should be applied on Qatar, which played a key role in mediating November's truce and hostage prisoner exchange between Israel and Hamas. Well, considering that they got the truce and dealt with prisoner exchange, Qatar should be praised for their work, not applying. So I think what Qatar have done is very, very good there. But interesting words from Netanyahu. Qatar can press Hamas on no one else. They host Hamas leaders. Hamas is dependent on them financially, Netanyahu said. I urge you to press Qatar to press Hamas because we want our hostages released. Now that's funny. I've seen to recall some footage of seeing Israeli hostages being shot by the IDF, allegedly. Qatari's Minister of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Majid al-Sanini said Doha categorically rejects the empty accusations. The Israeli Prime Minister's recent statements, in which he calls on Qatar to pressure Hamas into releasing Israeli hostages, are nothing but a new attempt by him to delay and prolong the war for reasons that have become clear to everyone, he wrote to X on Monday. Yeah, it has. It's ridiculous. He has been Hamas. Like, don't get me wrong, Hamas, what they did is atrocious, and nobody's taking that away. I have to keep regurgitating this point because people think that I don't like. I'm trying to be careful with my words here. Like, how can I put this? See, the thing is right, my criticism, I've said this before, that my criticism is at Netanyahu and the government, and not the people of Israel, not the country Israel, and certainly not Jews around the world in any way, shape or form. I think it's any kind of anti-Semitism on them is absolutely abhorrent in any way, shape or form. But Benjamin Netanyahu can stop this. He has caused over 29,000 Palestinian deaths. Millions of people, nearly thousands of people without, millions of people without food, shelter and whatnot. They've got nowhere else to go. They've all been trapped in the southern strip of the Gaza, Rafika now. And he wants to go in there. And it's just like, just stop. Like, when is this going to stop? You know, because so many innocent people have died. So many innocent Palestinians have died. He does not care. He does not care. He wants them wiped out. He wants it completely wiped from the face of the earth. That's the premise that he's portraying to the world. With the way that the IDF have been handling this, there's been nowhere near enough footage. I've not seen enough footage for me to say that Israel are looking after Palestinians, that they're taking care of them, and that I'm hearing hollow, empty words from the president. From the Prime Minister. Hollow, empty words is what I'm hearing. We categorically reject the accusations made by Israel's Prime Minister regarding Qatar's efforts in reconstruction and humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people in Gaza, portraying them as funding Hamas, which he personally knows we carried out in full coordination with Israel, the US, Egypt, the United Nations, and all concerned parties, and as he has said. Exactly. That temporary ceasefire was done in conjunction with Israel. The trading of hostages were done in conjunction with Israel, as with obviously the US and the United Nations and that. So yeah, Qatari's Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Al-Bahrain had said over the weekend that negotiations over a potential ceasefire were not very promising. Yeah, well, considering the comments just been made recently. Sheikh Mohammed, who is also foreign minister, said on Saturday he could not give details on the talks, but as with past deals, there are two elements: humanitarian conditions in Gaza and the number of Palestinian prisoners to be released in exchange for the release of Israeli captives. By the way, if there happens to be a ceasefire of some sort in the time of this, time of this recording, just so you're aware, this has been recorded at around 10 a.m. on the 20th of February, just for reference. The United States, Qatar, and Egypt have spent weeks trying to broker
a halt to fighting in Gaza and release some of the captives, but there is a wide gap between Israel and Hamas demands. Qatar said on Saturday that the talks have not been progressing as expected. Hamas said it will not release the remaining hostages without Israel ending the war and withdrawing its forces from Gaza. It also demanded the release of hundreds of Palestinians imprisoned by Israel, including its top fighters. Netanyahu has publicly rejected demands in any scenario in which Hamas would rebuild its military and governing capacities. He has said he sent a delegation to ceasefire talks in Cairo last week at US President Joe Biden's request, but didn't see the point in sending the team again. In an interview with Israel's Khan public broadcasting, Netanyahu's national security advisor Tanchi Habibi said military pressure and sticking to a strict line in negotiations could lead Hamas to drop its absurd demands. Netanyahu is also opposed to Palestinian statehood, which the US calls a key element for normalization of relations between Israel and regional heavyweight Saudi Arabia. Previously in December, Israel pulled its Mossad negotiations from Qatar after an impasse in negotiations. Israel has accused Hamas of not fulfilling its side of the agreement to extend the November truce in Gaza. They are making this more difficult than it needs to be. More unnecessary lives are being lost as a result of this. It is. More lives are being lost as a result of this, and it's so infuriating. It really, really is. I hope the pressure continues to mount on Netanyahu and his government. But whether they will be able to keep it up is another question, guys. That we will have to wait and see. I kind of hope that we do get another ceasefire sooner rather than later, because it is much needed. But obviously I will continue to drop shorts every now and then with regards to what's happening over there, of course. And any longer videos or bigger videos I may do them on my Rumble channel, which you can have a link for in the description down below. Guys, while you're here, before I go to the next article, if you can, hit the like button, share this across social media, and hit the bell notification icon so you'll be notified of when I upload another video. And guys, if you want to financially support me in the work I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, guys. Did you know you could be a YouTube member for as little as 99p to support work that I do here? And with that, you can get access to custom emojis, as well as you always get shout outs whenever you're on the live streams, and whenever you comment on any of my videos, guys, as a member, you always get a response from me. Sometimes be shorter, longer, but you always get a response, so you know that I read all comments regardless. But YouTube members, obviously, they will get a response from me if you comment on any of my videos as well. And also you can get access, like I said, to Rumble and Patreon. If you want to financially support me on Patreon as well, you can also get access to exclusive content on either one of them as well. Links for them are in the description, guys. So the next one we've got is from Euronews. So this one here from Euronews, obviously we have the elections are coming up, obviously, here. So the EU must keep its democracy safe and secure, Ursula von der Leyen says after announcing a re-election bid. I don't see the reason of changing their leader. I think Ursula von der Leyen's done a pretty, I would say, a decent job. But they must keep their democracy safe. They must continue the work that they are doing, and stay united more than ever before, especially in a world that is very divided, very corrupt. The EU is more. I think it's very important, not just for Europe, but actually for the world as a benchmark for everyone. So the blog must make its democracy safe and secure by increasing investment in defence, fighting disinformation and protecting its economy, Ursula von der Leyen told Euronews after announcing her re-election bid. All these things I couldn't agree more on. They need to protect itself from potential invasion of Russia. They need to obviously continue to fight off disinformation and misinformation, and protect the euro as well. So the German politician confirmed on Monday afternoon her desire to lead the European Commission for another 5 years. The news caps off weeks of mounting speculation and heats up the presidential race ahead of the elections to the European Parliament. If re-elected, Ursula von der Leyen is determined to make defence one of the most significant and structural priorities of her second mandate. Defence was for years a low-profile policy area in Brussels, and until Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine and forced Europeans to reckon with their shortcomings and weakness. On the online surge of misinformation, deepfakes and unlawful content has also put the blog on high alert, particularly in the context of elections where autocrat foreign governments actively seek to influence voters and shape favourable outcomes. The most important part is to make sure that our democracy is safe and secure, Ursula von der Leyen told Euronews.
Although military decisions remain the exclusive prerogative of member states, von der Leyen's team is moving to centralise more powers in the industrial side of the defence. A soon-to-be unveiling strategy, first reported by the Financial Times, will propose new tools to ramp up production, organise common procurement and roll out subsidies. Europe has gotten stronger because we all understand how important it is to have sound security spending and be able to provide security and to defend ourselves, von der Leyen has said. We have to spend more, we have to spend better, and we think we have to spend more European to consolidate our defensive industrial base. Europe's goal to boost its defensive capabilities become even more pressing after the recent remarks of Donald Trump, who said that if elected US President for a second term, he would encourage Russia to attack any NATO state that failed to meet the targets of spending 2% of their GDP in defense. This was a dumb, stupid comment by Donald Trump, and everyone knows he's a bloody poodle for Putin. Trump's comments triggered a furious reaction from Western leaders and raised fears about the alliance's long-term viability. NATO and the EU have 22 members in common, and the fate of one is deeply interlinked with the others. The alliance of NATO is the utmost important for the European Union, von der Leyen said in an interview with Euronews, but I think it's important that we do our own homework and that we fulfill our task. However, von der Leyen added security is seen as all compassionately manner. Her presidency has pioneered the concept of de-risking to deal with China and introducing far-reaching plans to do away with Russia's fossil fuels. We are also working hard to have economic security. We're working hard to have energy security. We have diversified our energy sources and have massively invested in homegrown renewable energies because it gives us energy independence, the president told Euronews. So I see them in terms of security of a much wider sense. I think these are strong words, obviously, from the president, and I think it's much needed, especially with difficult times. These presidencies, these elections, obviously, are really important. And I generally believe that they do need to ramp up defence, Europe. They really, really do. There is that potentially possibility down the line that Ukraine could fall. We obviously don't know if perhaps at one point maybe even a ceasefire may break out between Ukraine and Russia. We don't honestly know for certain, but I think it's one that we should be very, very concerned about whatever happens with regards to the war in Ukraine. But as for Europe itself, they are the benchmark of the world. They really are. Where they have come, what they have come from, the European Union, and it's a real shame that the United Kingdom is sitting outside it. And hopefully one day, I'd like to think that that all four nations will be part of the EU family once again in some point in the future, because we are much stronger together than we are divided. But we'll obviously have to wait and see how these elections go. I do believe von der Leyen hasn't been the best president. She has made some, her reaction to, especially what happened with the October 7th Hamas attack, was not her best liking, shall we say. Jumping right on the bandwagon of the rest of the Western leaders did not help her position at all, from that point of view. But I think she's been all right, but I don't know her as well as probably some of you guys in the comment section down below. So, but we will wait and see, guys. So this next one, oh wow, I've gone through these a lot faster than I think. So this next one, guys, is from Reuters. This is an exclusive from them. Interesting one to say the least. So Turkish Russian trade is hit by a fresh US sanctions threat. So how has so fresh US sanctions have hit Turkey as well? This is interesting here. Let's read into it. So a US threat hit to financial firms doing business with Russia with sanctions has chilled Turkish Russian trade, disrupted or slowed some payments to both imported oil and Turkish exports, according to 7 sources familiar with the matter. The US executive order in December did not explicitly target energy, but has complicated some Turkish payments for Russian crude as well as Russian payments for a broader range of Turkish exports, the sources had said. US sanctions aim to reduce the Kremlin's revenge and disrupt its war in Ukraine without choking Russia's oil and flows to the global market to avoid a potentially sensitive jump in US gasoline prices, with US President Joe Biden seeking re-election in November. However, similar payment problems are now faced by Turkey and have already disrupted Russian oil supplies to India and complicated those to the United Arab Emirates and China, according to oil traders. Russia is the top crude
Oil, diesel exporter and energy poor NATO member Turkey, supplying 8.9 million metric tons of crude and 9.4 million tons of diesel to its Black Sea negotiator in the 11 months to November. The emerging payment issues are due to Turkish banks renewing business and tightening compliances with Russian clients, four of the sources said. They have not disrupted Turkey's crude supplies, delaying only a small number of cargoes, two oil industry sources have said. A source with the Russian oil major said Russian oil exporters have not received payments from Turkey for 2 to 3 weeks. Ooh. It has become difficult to make some energy payments to Russia, especially after the new sanctions threat at the end of December. Some payments were disrupted, a Turkish source familiar with the payment issues said. The originally agreed upon method has to be changed or the payment has to be postponed, but the shipment continues. There may be a problem on a cargo by cargo basis, the source had said. The industrial and financial sector sources discussed the payments and entrainment disruptions under condition of autonomy, given they are not authorized to speak about this sensitive matter. Payment issues began after December. The focus is not on oil imports, but it is unsettling. It has not impacted the day-to-day functioning, but reminds us that a problem could arise at any time, a Turkish oil industry source had said. The Turkish Treasury declined to comment on when asked about the issue. Turkey banking watchdog BDDK did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Avdiivka opposes Western sanctions on Moscow, even as it criticises Russia's invasion of Ukraine. 2 years ago, it has managed to maintain close ties with both Moscow and Kiev throughout the conflict. Though Avdiivka said the sanctions will not be circumvented on Turkish soil, Russia ramped up pressure last year to halt transition of dual goods that Russia could use on its battlefield and has warned that Turkish banks and companies could be hit by secondary US sanctions. The disruption to Russian Turkish payments began when Biden signed an executive order on December 22nd, threatening firms helping Russia to combat sanctions with the risk of losing access to the US financial system. Financial institutes doing business on behalf of those targeted by the US sanctions are at risk, the order had said. On the 1st of February, the Kremlin said it was aware of Turkish banks tightening rules on Russian clients due to aggressive US pressure, and that it was working with Turkey to find solutions. Russian central bank governor Alexei said on Friday that there were additional difficulties in foreign trade transactions relating to settlements and logistics. One Turkish banker said banks carried out extremely malicious procedures regarding sanctions, with compliance departments closely examining all transactions. The issue is very sensitive and banks' complicate departments are on top of it, another banker had said. A senior US State Department official told Reuters it was encouraged by reports that Turkish banks are renewing existing businesses and tightening their compliance programs for Russian clients. The President's December 22 amendments to our Russian Sanctions Authority reaffirmed what we have said previously, that the foreign financial institutions are responsible for ensuring that they do not process transactions that benefit Russia's military or otherwise enable conservation of our measures. We have extended discussions with our Turkish partners over the last year. We will analyse January's trade data once available and look forward to continuing those conversations, the official had said. Initial data showed that Turkish exports to Russia fell 39% year on year to $631 million in January, having increased to 16.9% last year to $10.9 billion. Imports from Russia fell by 20.2% in January to $4 billion, having dropped to 22.5% in 2023 to $45.6 billion. Crude oil from Russia jumped by more than twofold to 12 million tons in 2022. It supplied 8.9 million tons of oil to Turkey in January-November 2023, down 20% from the year before, but still above pre-war average. Much of the impact was on non-oil trade sources said. Exports of machinery in particular stopped similarly because of similarity of military equipment, the first source familiar with the issue had said. The real problem arises not with the payments that Turkey should be made, but the payments that Turkey will receive. This shows a high level of hesitation Turkish banks have towards the sanctions, the source has said. So it's a bit of ease there, but they're still obviously going to continue working. The trade that they have with each other is very important, I would say. But I think obviously what Turkey they're trying to do is they're trying to obviously continue the relationship, trying to continue business, but without their business directly going towards the Russian military. But there's no certainty that they can do that, so it's a bit of a difficult situation here. Turkey's just trying to cover themselves from getting any sanctions by America, I think is what they're trying to do really. and it looks like, obviously, from the exclusive, that it's having a harmful impact, because Turkey and Russia have always had a pretty decent relationship there. I always consider Turkey like the middlemen in the world, when it comes to certain nations, and they've always been that way. It is having an effect here on the trade between them, but I think it kind of depends on how long this conflict. Like I say, it goes all the way back to the Russian conflict, the Russian-Ukraine war, and how this will affect the relationship. I don't think it will affect the relationship, but it will damage them economy-wise. But not by too much. But like I've said in other articles, obviously Russia seem to be doing pretty well, and they're getting weapons and procurement from North Korea as well now as well. We don't know if they're getting them from China, but I know some people have commented in my channel saying that China are supplying Russia with weapons and whatnot. I haven't seen actually any specific articles stating that. But if anyone has any sources there to confirm that, can send them to me on the Discord, and I'll have a look at them. But I've not seen anything of the sorts, guys. So, guys, we just come under the hour, and we've just wrapped up the last article, guys. What did you make of this week's World's Newsround? So we looked at various different topics. Mainly, it was more focused on Europe today. A lot of things happening, mainly with regards to the conflict in Ukraine. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comment section down below, what you thought of today's World Newsround. But just before you go, guys, if you can, hit the like button, be greatly appreciated. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video, and subscribe, because it really does help support the channel. And again, if you want to financially support me in the work I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or joining me on Patreon or Rumble for exclusive content there as well. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.